Okay, good morning, or whatever time it is for you as you're watching this. All right, I wanted to play another game, Star Wars, talk some more about politics. Specifically, I want to. I was not all that happy with how I handled the discussion on historical materialism last time, so I have done a little bit of refresher reading and have uh, made a notepad to talk about what I want to talk about. Gosh, this is one thing I hate is that every time I just want to say hi, GLA Chef, I keep on getting a pop-up of my starting part. Okay, anyway, so yeah, the basic idea, the thesis, I'd say, of my like view of history, and by extension of current reality, current politics, is that history is shaped by material conditions, like the physical reality of the world that we exist in, combined with people acting on that to promote their own self-interest. And that just every other thing flows downhill from that. So I think one of the things I failed to do last time that I want to start off by doing is like providing an example of this, where I said that I don't believe in religious wars. And that doesn't mean that wars are not fought on the boundaries of religion. That happens all the time. But I don't think that religion is the cause of the wars, for instance. Or or I would say even the cause of any of governmental policies, even in theocracies. So I think an example of this that should be relatively obvious once I is, for instance, you think of the 30 Years' War, right? Obviously, extremely famous, quote unquote, religious war. But that wasn't, I mean, was it really the case of people fighting over, you know, transubstantiation and whether that was a real thing? Or was it more, hold on, by Falcon, Corin, Kessel Run, move, that's all 12 force. That would be Han alone. You got Orlon with the double back. He probably has some space to attack. Would like to get Kessel Run started. I think Han stays at Corellia though. If I don't pull Kessel Run, I save a few. I get either Antilles maneuver or Huey so that Han can get back up too. Yeah. So I do flip. Okay. Okay, but so if, for instance, that the cause of the 30 Years' War is the difference in beliefs between Protestants and Catholics, one would expect that to be static over time, right? That's my thinking. Except that's obviously not the case. Protestants and Catholics in the context of the Holy Roman Empire during the period of the 30 Years' War were, you know, extremely hostile at the war. I mean, not exclusively fought on those grounds, but pretty much. Okay, so here's Chewie. Tilly's maneuver is active. This is in reserve. I think I take Chewie and draw two. Draw one maybe. Walk lane. Their turn. Care about walking on their turn? I suppose I'd rather walking on my own turn, I guess. I don't want to activate the council rank. I might as well. Okay, so but you compare that to like Protestants and Catholics in America today, for instance. There is virtually no distinction in terms of political interests. You can just kind of have the umbrella Christian term. And to the extent that there are differences, they are minor. And certainly there is no wars going on at the moment, although there was a period of time where, for instance, Mormons were at war with the United States. Mormons were persecuted. They, you know, had to leave Illinois, I think it was, were driven out by Illinoisans, and then tried to settle in Utah and kind of keep the United States out. Like, these are things still. Alright, so wait. But it wasn't. None of these things were because, like, people disagreed with Joseph Smith or something like that. It was because people want power. And defining themselves on a religious group is a way to organize towards their own interests. Oops, I didn't fork that. That. All right. So I don't have a way to look at my reserve deck right now. Is this a once per game pull? I don't want to pull and miss this. Do I just pull? I think I don't do that again here. I don't want to miss a pilot either. So let's. The site is not in there. Dash is in there. Pull into this. Dodge offensively. I want to talent card also. I could Mirax now. Dash later. I'd rather dash later, to be honest. Keep that in hand for attacking something. Just keep top cards off. Okay. On the other hand, there's that. Try to get that going right now. Might be too early. Or I could Mara and yeah, actually that's probably pretty good. Yeah. Less than 5. I'm not gonna overflow. Or this means I don't lose anything. 9. I'm only getting one destiny. No, I bought up. Yeah. Oh, I should have. Whatever, it's fine. I know I want the celebration anyway. Okay. But ideally, you play the castle run prior to doing a use pile search when you don't think you're gonna do any more reserve deck searches. Just possibly getting more cards in the use pile. I don't have anything that would go into my use pile here. Like sometimes if I have like Jedi Love or something in hand, you do that first. And also, I mean, this does give you more information as to what's on the castle, and it's just correct to have as much information as possible when you do your searches. Okay, good. Okay, so long detour about from the subject, but yeah, I was talking about the religious wars in the context of Protestants versus Catholics. Now, when it came to 16th century Holy Roman Empire, these were very important things. When it comes to modern day America, not so much. When it comes to 1980s Northern Ireland, or Ireland in general, can be a big deal. It all of these. Should I lose the Hootrix? I think I should. Let's just do that. All of these things depend on the context and how it relates to power. So, for instance, Catholics in Northern Ireland tended to be Republicans. They wanted to break from the Union with England. Protestants wanted to keep the Union, in part because, it was a fear that Protestants thought, okay, the United Kingdom will protect us, and were favored by the United Kingdom. Catholics were oppressed by the United Kingdom, thought that Ireland would protect them, and so on. The but yeah, the basic thesis behind all of this is if there was some kind of inevitable conflict that comes from difference in religious doctrines, as opposed to the power of the people in institutions favored by those religious institutions, then you'd expect that these would not change over the course of time in the difference of material circumstances. And that just is demonstrably not what has happened. Oh, interesting. Is this the scum Eop? Oh, okay. I didn't know Eops was running scum. How does he find audience chamber? Okay. So I can react with Chewy, but I'm still getting the 0. It's still going to be worth that do, I think. I don't want to lose spawn here. Yeah, this was the downside. I definitely don't want to lose Mirax. So that means I'm losing my celebration. Oh, hold on, I gotta... Okay, hello again. Alright, so battle at Castle. React the Chewy here. If I had one more force, I probably would have saved it to protect Mirax. I'm not sure. I mean, I can retrieve the celebration, so it's not the end of the world here. Dark Lighter spin would be very nice to have right now. Actually, no, it won't. I have 0. I, but yeah, I still win by 2. Okay. Anyway, let's yeah, I think I have beaten the religion topic into the ground. But let's we were talking about Ireland. Like we can talk about the Irish as well. Oh geez, he had scum, duh. Why didn't I pull him high? Oh, he's got maneuver 5, so he can pull short range fighters, kill Mirax, kill. Okay, kill celebration, but I can get it back with where would the castle at? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so Irish you can talk about in the context of 19th century America, not white. Irish today, white. And that is just a product of how much power. There's nothing inherent about whiteness. Like how much power, how much acceptedness that people has to force themselves inside of the group of power. Get Mirax back. I want dash here. Let's see, so 5, 8, 10, 12, 14. I'm gonna force to do all of that. No cards in hand, interesting. dash is there. Dash is not there. Finally, I'm able to pull Mos Eisley though. Mos Eisley might have been there last turn and I forgot to pull it. I'd rather kill Focus here. Yeah, this seems better. Okay, and then let's keep Dash alive. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing. Like culture, race, all these things are built from the ground by. Oh, so that's the game. All right. Let's see if we can find another one. While I keep talking. Let's see. From the ground by people that are. It's another way in which people have power and are able to that want to keep power. So if you are white, benefiting from white supremacist system, your incentive, at least from a material perspective, the immediate incentive, speaking of Irish, is going to be to preserve that system or to even further that system. It doesn't mean, obviously, there are many people within the system of white supremacy, even beneficiaries of it, that are going to act in opposition to it, but the incentives are the opposite. And a majority of the time, the structures are going to be that. So, as an individual, say if you're Irish and you're not white, the goal is to become white. And you see that with, I mean, Arab, Hispanic, Italian, Turkish, Jews, people that are either historically on the fringes or not white or are white, or things like that. Like it's quite it's like it's not about skin color is the obvious thing. At least not entirely about skin color, because these are things that at least I would say Arabs probably most people would say are not white, I think, but like are generally lighter than Italian. It's such an arbitrary thing. What do you do? Do I have a battleground in my deck? What do I even do? I just like activate and get sights out, I think, and just wait for my opponent to play a sight. Yeah, I don't seem to have a battleground in my deck, it seems like. Anyway, let's move on from that. Basically, I guess the one last thing to talk about in terms of things like in opposition is that this also means that I'll generally be skeptical about claims about human nature, at least claims about human nature that have to do with societal organization. Like another thing that we've seen evolve throughout time and change as material circumstances dictate it. And it's part of that base superstructure analysis that I was talking about last time, where the idea of an it's like you imagine the building. That's what the metaphor is originated on. You imagine a building, the base of the building, the foundation, and then everything above that is built on that. But it's not a perfect analogy because the idea is that they serve to reinforce each other, which I think in actual construction, that's just not the case. Like the stuff above the foundation does not support the foundation itself, I don't think. I'm not really a builder. But anyway, so I think, for instance, myths about human nature always tend to crop up and say, yeah, humans naturally are incentivized or are not, humans naturally choose the kinds of systems that we currently exist in. But like, I mean, I will make claims about human nature. Like I just said, I think there is a tendency of humans to act in their self-interest. And that's a claim about human nature. So that there are some that I will, entertain. I think it's possible to have discussions about political foundations without saying some claims about human nature, but there's a lot that I am skeptical about. Or like generative grammar or something. That's an argument I am convinced by. You would never say Clifford the red big dog. It doesn't like there's no one ever has to teach you that it's wrong to describe it as a black big cock, right? You just know instinctually that it is a big black cock and a big red dog. The order of adjectives works in a certain way. And that's just, I mean, that's true throughout all languages. Or no, is that true throughout all languages? That's just a rule of English that is just not a taught rule. What an instinctual one, just by the formation of English. It might be all, whatever. This has nothing to do with anything. I don't even know why. I'm just like, I'm not even like remotely intelligent about linguistics. I don't know why I went into that. So I just lose Vader's lightsaber, right? They can get it while I am your father, so it's just a card later. Hopefully he doesn't have automation. I don't think anyone plays automation. Alright, just lose bit, eh? Yeah, whatever. Let's just place out a play. There you go. Alright, anyway. So yeah, I think that a lot of time, I think it's worth being skeptical that I'm not saying it's not true, but I think it's worthwhile to be skeptical about claims regarding human nature. Anyway, so yeah, that like for instance, a lot of claims about, capitalism being human nature, for instance. Those claims have always like when we had feudalist society, people made similar claims. They supported the current system, and it's just these things always lag behind, right? When the material structures change such that feudalism becomes not beneficial to people that do have wealth, I guess you would even want to start before that. You start like at a prehistorical society, right? There was no, if everyone is a hunter-gatherer, there is no real incentive to attach any kind of value to property rights. There is no such thing as productive property. It's only when, this is still prehistorical, obviously, it has to be. I guess that's the point, so during, we had the agricultural revolution, right? And that's when suddenly land and property rights started to be important. If you go through all the effort of putting things, putting seeds into the ground, and then later harvesting the fruits of those seeds, you want to make sure that no one comes in and takes your land and harvests and eats those crops because you're the one, you want to be entitled to the fruits of your own labor. What's this one? Do I just draw some cards? Do I play Vader out here? I guess I might as well, right? So I shouldn't have activated Banner right now. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If I miss on Vader and Vader was the top card of Force Pile, I'll be silly, but otherwise, whatever. Oh, I do have a Battleground site in this deck. Okay. when you move from hunter-gatherer society to an agricultural society, all of a sudden now you need to protect land. Now is the source of value. And at the same time, you are significantly more productive by virtue of having agriculture than a hunter-gatherers can be. You can, division of labor becomes a thing. It, if you're in a hunter-gatherer society, there's not really any sense behind division of labor. Like there is still going to be some rudimentary division of labor because obviously like the literal labor of childbirth, of carrying children, has to be divided. And especially during stages of pregnancy, you're going to be inhibited from hunting and gathering, or at least it's going to be significantly more difficult to the point where I expect I'm not an expert on prehistory, to the extent that anyone can be, but I would expect that due to that, you generally would have women being often pregnant, and especially during the late stages of pregnancy, not contributing as much to the hunting and gathering and being provided for by their partners in small groups that they did exist in. But when you now move to an agricultural society, this incentives change. The material circumstances change. Now, the land that you inhabit itself can be productive. The land is a thing to be valued of its own. So you want to establish property rights under that. You need society to protect that property rights. You need society to protect from raiders. And as your agriculture develops, you might be productive enough that now you need people to make the tools. Like if it's a hunter-gatherer society, there's no, I can't imagine that there would be a robust enough system that you would require a person just full-time making tools, making like a spear to go hunting for all of the hunters, and the hunters come to the spear person and get their spears and move on hunting, and then that spear person is just provided for. I doubt, I mean, it was a more, you would say in those kind of societies, it's more generally communal society in the sense of from each according to his ability to each according to his needs, as opposed to direct trade of like, I give you tools, you give me meat. It seems unlikely that the division of labor would have happened that way. I don't think that was the case. I think pretty much people made their own tools, or just there were tools that were common to the group that people just used, and they brought their spear back and put it in the pile of spears at the end of the day, and everyone picked up their spear. There was no like individual ownership of spears, I think. Just there. Seems like the play. Okay, so that so you get into that society, and then that's going to tend towards feudalism, right? Because the source of all wealth, of all value, that's just like this revolutionary new source of value, is the land itself that you can plant the crops in. And whoever, and you need to have a system of ownership of the land because otherwise people are going to take your crops. And so the incentives are all behind. Might as well behind that system, and it values land ownership. So a society so heavily focused on land ownership is going to tend towards a government structure that benefits the people that control the land and inheritability of the land. That's like there, that's your origins of feudalism right there, and that's going to continue for the next, you know, 5 to 6,000 years, really, until you can exist in a system as a person that does not own significant land, until there is like sources of wealth, sources of power that are separated from land ownership. There's no possible way to destroy feudalism. And that starts happening with capitalism when you have productive forces not directly tied to land. You, for the first time, have the ability now to have forces of power pulling against systems that are solely focused on land ownership. But it takes a while. Like the change, so we would consider the base, like you start, the, I would say the relations of production, the mode of production, meaning mode of production is how you make things. Hunter-gatherer society, mode of production is just going to be seeing a deer, killing a deer, seeing a bush, gathering berries. You get the relations of production in such a society are generally going to be someone gathers, someone hunts, and they share that with their unit. Very simplistic. Then it's going to move to an agricultural society in which originally someone is planting things and they want to control the crop. And so yeah, now the person owning the land, I mean, so they build up structures of ownership surrounding that, and it's going to be the person that owns the land gets the fruit of the products, which is a self-reinforcing structure. Then now the people that don't own the land, but who nevertheless are, they have interest in surviving, obviously. What are their options? They can either own their own land or they can work for someone on land that someone else owns. In order to own the land themselves, they need to have the power to seize that land. And as you get increasingly militarized societies, that's something that occurs. This is not looking good for me. I do have you now. Few destinies here. You know, this could this could be worse, I think. Actually, yeah, this seems like it's not that bad actually. hope he does not have rebel leadership. Oh, he has retrieval. Okay. Whatever. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, you're getting feudalism develop because we're targeting target. Okay, yeah, just do that. Because we've got the situation of, in order to own land, you need to be able to protect it from hostile actors that are seeking to take it. Otherwise, someone is going to take the land from you, and they're just going to have it. And so most people are foreclosed from the ability to own land. So those people, in order to survive, have to strike up a deal with the person that does own the land. And the incentive of that landowner is going to be, let's not censor that. Wait, they changed it theory, didn't they? Yeah, you don't, yeah, you either take it into hand or cancel every draw. Okay, maybe this would take time. Would like all into hand. He hasn't rebel leadership yet. Let's see. If he's been holding this rebel leadership the whole time, in order to make me play I Have You Now first, well played. Oh, I meant to sniper Leia. Ah, whatever. Okay, so feudalism. Have I said everything I wanted to say about feudalism? Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm saying, where I'm getting at, right? Is that then you're gonna have myths built up around feudalism, explaining why feudalism is the sensible organization of society. You've got, you know, all of the culture is going to build off of that. So now the mode of production is agricultural. The relations of production is feudalism. Is the owner gets the reaps the reward of the land. The person that owns the land is the person that's able to protect the land via just might is right by force. And definitely should have Vader might have been able to survive. It depends on destinies. Could have had 29 for attrition. This I want to redraw. I just want to get like big destinies here. Maybe I can kill all three of them would be very nice. To break 19 in order to do that. 16? Yes, okay. So full sight clear. Oh, and if I had snipered, Vader would have survived. Damn. And yeah, that continues until all of a sudden the mode of production is not purely agricultural, and it was never purely agricultural. Obviously, there's still tool makers, but I mean, you're getting an increasing division of labor. But in general, the tool maker is like some blacksmith or coppersmith or something like that, and they're just making a hoe by themselves. Just, maybe there's, some lumberjack that provides them the wood for the handle, and some smelter, miner. Like, there are various, like, in order to get to the completed hoe, you've got a bunch of steps, but you're not, but it changes when you have a system where instead of one person making one hoe by, taking the handle, attaching it to the, attaching the blade to the handle, and, shaping the blade, all those things, like converting the raw materials into the finished product. You have someone says, wow, you know what? We could do this a lot faster if we had one person shape a bunch of rods, one person shape all of the blades, and then they hand it to another person who ties the rope, and another person who, uh, I don't actually know how to make a hoe, but you know what I mean, an assembly line. Once we discover, oh wow, instead of, if we hire 5 people to each do 1/5 of the work of making a hoe, they don't become 5 times faster. They become 50 times faster. All of a sudden, people that use that kinds of productivity, productivity just skyrockets. And now you have a system where you have wealth completely that can be completely divorced from owning land because your productivity is now tied to the ownership of the new mode of production, that being the factory. The factory can create immense wealth despite, you know, not being the traditional large, like in terms of like wealth per space, a factory is going to convert wealth a whole lot more than a large farm can, just by nature of how well you can work there. So now you have people that get land through means other than pure inheritance, who produce wealth from things other than inheritance, but who are under a feudalist system of the economy and political structure, have no institutional political power. They want that, obviously. So there's going to be, over the next 400 or 500 years, I mean, continuing to today, you're going to have the struggle between these groups of, they're just coward. Do I have force lightning in this deck? No. Wait, this isn't even. This is the Empire's back. This is a different Emperor. I don't know if I play the Emperor. There's like a virtual Emperor's back, something I think. Okay, and less than 5. Should I subtract 1 from this? Let's just assume there's no space. If I get got by space, it happens. Do I operate on loop? I think I want to here. 17 to 8. Probably Fujix is it. Okay, so moot point. All right. Yeah. Let's move on because I'm sure I have we're targeting Emperor or Vader rather. Let's hit whether or not I subtract. All right, let's call up my notes. What did I say? Okay, so yeah, let's finally tie this back to the current day. So again, general thesis. I think I feel like hopefully I proved. Wait, what did he just do? Jedi's focus. Oh, exclude them both from the battle. Oh, that doesn't count as canceling a battle with blast door controls. I guess the opponent didn't cancel the battle. The battle canceled because everyone was excluded. All right, well that's good to know. Not seen that card before. I don't. That was rough. Okay. These are not the cards I want in my hand. All right. Yeah. So today think of it as the same way. It's that material conditions, physical reality is going to be dictating how people behave in pursuit of their own best interest. So the example that comes to mind, most obvious example to me of people not understanding this is Trump. I talked about this a little last time, but I don't think I fully made the point. Is that Trump saying these countries, they're emptying their jails, they're emptying their mental institutions, they're sending them to America. All the criminals are here, and we should the next. He said like in the Democratic debate or something, we should have the next debate in Caracas because that's going to be safer than American cities now because all of the criminals have left Venezuela and have come to America. It's the most ridiculous anti-materialist thing. I'll be right back. Okay, so that is just so wrong on multiple levels. First level being that it has the understanding that people are just, they are criminals. They're a criminal in Venezuela, they'd be a criminal in America. That's just like a characteristic of them inherent to them as a person, as opposed to something that's shaped by their material circumstances. Second part is saying that if you get rid of the criminals in Venezuela, let's just, all right, the first reason it's ridiculous, if we're being honest, is it's not true. It's not a thing that's actually happening. But even if it was, presuppose this ridiculous idea actually is a real thing, is that's really happening. Still wouldn't make sense because people aren't just committing crimes because they are inherently criminal from some just criminal gene or whatever he thinks they have. It's a product of their material circumstances. The fact that they're in a country that has been absolutely devastated by American sanctions, by, a corrupt Maduro government. Let's be real. Maduro, not the greatest guy. Um, and so on. And the second part of that that's even more ridiculous is, let's say, again, counterfactually, that all of the Venezuelan criminals are out of the country. They have no more criminals. They've all come to America. Well, everything that was still true about Venezuela that gave rise to the criminal problem still exists. There's still an oil-dominated economy that can't trade oil for petrodollars. There, it's not like all of a sudden that the demand for crime has disappeared. You would just get a whole bunch of new criminals responding to the exact same stimuli that caused the first batch. It's like if you Thanos snapped all of the Mexican drug cartels away. What do you think? No one wants heroin anymore? No one wants marijuana? I mean, heroin not produced in Mexico. Marijuana, cocaine, the American market for those things goes away? No, that's not how you solve the drug problem. You just get a new group of people who are able to provide those goods to the American market and who have no moral compunctions about doing whatever they have to do in order to accomplish that. I lose here. That was a good one. Wonder if I don't think I could have won that even if I had done the sniper on Leia earlier. He just like he had the refill, killed all my stuff. I would have had one more Vader that I could have come down with because my Vader would have survived. I didn't really. Yeah, I think that was fine. Anyway, all right, let's finish my point here, and then we won't. Then that will be the conclusion of the discussion about historical materialism, at least just on its own. Obviously, historical materialist analysis is the way in which I view everything about the world. So it's like permeates through all the rest of my analysis, which is why I wanted to talk about it. This is Daisy, by the way. Hello. Say hi, Daisy. Daisy is a little bit more than 1 year old. But like just explaining it is like when I was teaching like kids long division, and I was like, wait, I know what the answer to this question is, but I don't know how I did it. I just kind of do it. And I had to go to one of the smart girls in the class and say, wait, teach me how to do long division again, 'cause I don't remember. And I forgot it again. I don't remember, like, I know something, like, you put some things underneath the division thing and you do some multiplication somewhere to see what the remainder is, and then you divide again or so. I don't remember, but, like, I could tell you what the answer is, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how I worked it out. And it's the same thing with this, is that it's the way in which you view the world, but explaining it is not always super intuitive. And I imagine that's true. Hopefully, I think some of you would have had this a similar historical materials analysis. Maybe you have a different analysis of history. And I imagine either way that it's the same for you. But yeah, back to the present day. And just I just think it's important to analyze just all of current day politics using the same framework. In that, okay, here's another example of like when you especially see people engaging in non-materialist analysis is when they talk about Muslim nation or Islam rather as like a backward religion because of the observable and correct um, backwards nature indeed of many Muslim majority countries, which is just Muslim countries in general are extremely oppressive, conservative, some of the only not like countries that don't even pretend to be a democracy. Um, very bad with religious minorities in Muslim countries these days. But and if you look at that from a non-materialist sense, it's easy to draw the conclusion, oh, it's because of Islam. It's inherently a repressive religion. And that's just I don't think supported by the facts at all and is just not materialist. If you like if that was true, you'd expect that to be true for the entire history of Islam. But that's not the case. There was, hundreds of years where the Muslim majority nations were in fact more scientifically, culturally advanced than Christian nations as like the two obvious parallels. Um, in large part, I mean, it didn't entirely change, but I would say that a primary, um, like you've got the golden age of Islam ending around the time of the Mongol invasion, which primarily just, due to geographic uh, reasons is, much more affected the Muslim world than the Christian world. And but like even that, like, arguably the Ottoman Empire versus the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, all those things. But especially once we get into the geography of the discovery of the New World and colonialism, we have opportunities just again based on where European societies were located as it contrasts to the powerful Muslim societies. Obviously, one was much more poised to exploit the resources of that new world, but I can't, like, I mean, if we want to talk about who's more advanced, is in terms of a moral, obviously the greatest atrocities uh, during that area were products of the colonization of the Americas. But that's when, you've got significant technological development on the backs of that was absolutely more Christian than Muslim. But when we're talking about that, we're talking about Christian majority nations. They're transitioning into capitalism prior to Muslim majority nations. But I mean, anyway, that's just the counterfactual. But we also, just like bringing that back to today, we had a system where there were a few successful and a lot of unsuccessful leftist progressive secular movements within Muslim majority countries, all of which were opposed by America, UK, powerful Western interests, some of which were couped in uh, Iran, most notably, but also Afghanistan, some of which there were multiple interested parties that were anti-government in various nations, and we would always support the conservative ones because Soviets were supporting the more leftist ones. And so radical fundamentalist Islam was our ally against the Soviets. And so we supported all of those groups. USSR dissolved. Those conservative fundamentalist groups pretty much throughout all of at least Middle Eastern and South Asian uh, geographies have taken power now. And we act all shocked Pikachu face when, oh my god, all of these countries are fundamentalist Muslim rulership. It must be because Muslims are inherently fundamentalists. No. Our interests, our material interests in preserving hegemony against the Soviet Union caused us to support groups like this, and those are the groups that are in power. And groups in power try to stay in power. And we have the value of stability that we want to continue to preserve. And so that's the extremely, extremely short version of the story of why that region is so effed up. And yeah, if you don't have any kind of materialist analysis of this, you might just be jumping to conclusions based on just like, oh, what do I see about these people that are acting this way? Oh, it must be because that's the way they are. That's how racism forms. Why is it that there are so many black criminals? I think it's just because black people just like doing crimes more. They're just, or maybe they're just stupider, right? Like that's the kind of analysis you get if you're not looking at wealth disparities, education disparities, opportunity, uh, difference in how police treat people, like just the entire system around what the problem is. Anyway, that's um that's the basics of how I look at essentially all political issues in the world, and just kind of wanted to talk about that, and then maybe talk about some specifics of something or other next time. But I'm always going to be taking it back to that framework whenever I'm talking about it. So whenever I talk about materialism in the future, essentially that's what I'm talking about, and hopefully that I explained it well enough here to at least be comprehensible, and I was hopefully more coherent than last time. So thank you all.